As I look at the crowd, we're so happy because last night when I looked at the attendees, we have our distinguished congressional staff. For those who are new to Washington, you better get to know those congressional staff as well as you know the members. I personally am very grateful with the large turnout from the diplomatic corps. Last night when I counted, we had up to 25 embassies represented and 19 languages. I tried to say welcome in all 19 languages. I got to 5. The 5 relate to where I was born, which is important, where I live, which is important, where I met my wife, which is important, and where I run marathons. But after 5 and barely mastering them, I decided to stop. So welcome again, and it is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Margot Thorning. Margot is our chief economist. Margot has been my partner for decades. We won't say how long. I'm getting older. Margot's getting younger and wiser. She's an expert in international issues like climate change. She's been invited to make presentations to the UN Commission on Sustainability. She's made presentations in China, India, Russia, the EU. She founded a group, one of our subsidiaries, the International Council for Capital Formation, with former Secretary George Shultz, and made numerous trips to Brussels as a result. And finally, she is also the author. She's the editor of a book called Climate Change Policy and Economic Growth. The two paths should move forward together. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Dr. Margot Thorning.
Let me join Mark in welcoming everybody and just say a little bit about the American Council for Capital Formation's work over the years. The last couple of decades, we've focused quite a bit on the impact of policies to regulate energy and economic impact. We've also, of course, focused on cost-effective ways of slowing the growth of greenhouse gas emissions, and much of that is on the ACCF website. So I would just like to mention that Chairman Rogers, Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, wanted to be with us today, but due to the press of business, he couldn't. But just for those of you who aren't maybe familiar with the Appropriations Committee in the House, they are determined how much money is spent on various programs, various regulatory programs put forward by Congress or by the administration. So the Appropriations Committee is one of the most powerful in Congress. And you should notice that of the 53 members of the House Appropriations Committee, about 26 of the members, both Democrat and Republican, are from states that use a lot of coal to produce electricity and a lot of fossil fuels. So that's probably going to be, the impact on their states of policies to regulate GHGs is certainly going to be important to them as they look at the policies put forward by the administration. So I'd like to read the letter, which is in your packet, that Chairman Rogers shared with us. The deployment of reliable and affordable electricity generation is key to economic development. To this end, coal-fired power generation is essential to poverty eradication efforts in the developing world. Coal is the world's most affordable, reliable, and inexpensive source of fuel. And developing nations deserve to take advantage of this robust natural resource by utilizing cutting-edge fossil fuel technologies. However, under the President's plan, allies like Pakistan would not receive funding for efficient coal plants, despite the need for cheap, reliable electricity that can provide investment and job creation. Rather than investing exclusively in renewable energy systems that only work part of the time and do little to raise income levels, we must advance smart energy infrastructure projects in the developing world and balance economic development needs with environmental objectives. The House Appropriations Committee, where I serve as chairman, has taken meaningful steps toward these goals in several of the fiscal year 2016 appropriations bills. The committee has pushed back on the administration's efforts to prohibit the export of fossil fuel technologies, has refused the President's request to contribute to the UN Green Climate Fund, and invested $605 million in making fossil fuel technologies cleaner and more efficient. Through my role as chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, I will continue to support global economic development by promoting access to affordable energy, which is essential to political security and to quality of life. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dave Banks, I had the privilege of working with when he was stationed in Brussels in 2004, 2006. Dave wears many hats, but I just want to focus on some of his accomplishments in the international sphere with respect to climate change policy. From 2004 to 2006, he served as a diplomat in the U.S. mission to the EU in Brussels, where his primary portfolio was climate change. He was awarded the State Department's Superior Honor Award for his work in helping relaunch a high-level bilateral dialogue between the U.S. and the EU on climate change. From 2006 to 2008, he served as Senior Advisor on International Climate Policy at the White House Council on Environmental Quality. He was deeply engaged in the UNFCCC, Major Economies Initiative, the Montreal Protocol, and non-CO2 issues, including HFCs. He received the EPA Climate Award for diplomacy from the Obama EPA for his work in the Bush administration. From 2009 to 2010, he served as an advisor to an environmental NGO, the Institute for Governance on Sustainable Development, focused on furthering a non-CO2 agenda, including HFC. With that, let me turn it over to ACCF Executive Vice President.
Thank you, Margot, for that kind introduction. Good morning. I'd like to welcome all of you. ACCF deeply appreciates the time that you've spent to come join us today. We know that all of you are busy, so thank you again. I hope that you find a lot of value in this discussion. In fact, I know that you will. That's how confident I am. What we intend to do here today is to help the diplomatic community have a deeper appreciation and understanding of U.S. climate change policy, including the many different factors in play that will determine the success or the failure of the U.S. climate pledge to the United Nations. I believe that you'll hear a different perspective today. In fact, I would wager that you will not or simply do not hear a lot of these points from most of your sources, including state and EPA. Now on EPA, I think it's important to note that EPA was planning to send a group of people today to attend. We invited them to give remarks, comments, and also be available to respond to the different points that the panel would make. We thought that would be very valuable to you. Unfortunately, EPA had to change its plans, but certainly our colleagues from EPA are always welcome to join us in any of our public discussions. I'm excited about this conversation. I don't know if you can pick up on that, but we've got a great panel, and not because I helped select these guys, but all of our panelists, all of our distinguished panelists have deep expertise on climate change policy and in different ways. Before we get started, let me just run through the plan quickly. Each panelist will give about 5 minutes worth of remarks. I've got a few questions that I would like to pose. They'll respond to those. After that, we should have a fair amount of time for Q's and A's from the audience. And please, we welcome your comments, your remarks. I think that makes it better for this type of exchange. We want it to be as open as possible. We'll then break for lunch. Before dessert, we say the best will last, of course. We'll hear from Ambassador Harlan Watson, former senior climate negotiator for the Bush administration. Harlan will share his perspective on the negotiations. and we'll have time for some Q's and A's. Everyone is on the record except for Neil Chatterjee. He is off the record, unfortunately. And he is not here yet, but he will be. He's running late. He has a leadership meeting on highways, but he assures me that he will be here. Now, once he gets here, in fact, the panel may be over at that point. We'll give him the podium to opine. I think that he would actually like that better. And by the way, if you have to leave early, that's fine. We certainly understand any constraints that you might have. Okay, let me quickly run through the intros for the panelists. Our first panelist will be Steve Eule. Steve was a senior climate change technology advisor at the Department of Energy during the Bush administration. He was responsible for understanding energy technology pathways for emissions reductions. He was our go-to guy, by the way. So when we were looking at, what was even possible for emissions reductions with different technologies, Steve was the guy and played an important role in helping us think through the Asia-Pacific Partnership, major economies, the UN framework. Today, he's responsible for climate change and related technology issues at the U.S. Chamber Institute for 21st Century Energy. Roger Martella was EPA's chief legal advisor during the last part of the Bush administration. He led the team responsible for developing, for the first time, under the Clean Air Act, the federal government's climate change legal framework. Before that, he worked in litigation and handling of environmental matters before the Department of Justice and the EPA. Roger is one of the leading minds on climate change regulation, including the EPA proposals that you're all very familiar with. He currently co-leads the environmental practice group at Sidley Austin. Derek Freeman. Derek was climate energy advisor to Senator Mark Pryor, Democrat from Arkansas. Derek was very much engaged in the cap and trade discussions in the Senate for several years, and then worked for the Nuclear Energy Institute, where he lobbied for climate policies that would promote the deployment of nuclear power. Today, he's senior fellow at the Progressive Policy Institute, where he continues to work on energy and climate change issues. And by the way, I think for your information, we've got fuller bios in your packet. So with that, let me turn it over to Steve. Steve, please share with us your thoughts on the gap analysis.
At 5 minutes, I said, damn, I can read the analysis. This is part of the problem. The administration's INDC that it's the framework you mentioned. It really doesn't say all that much. As a matter of fact, when you look at what's in the administration's INDC, it's very little more detail than what was in the president's announcement in China back in November of 2014 when the U.S. and China announced their agreement. So the question for us is, the business community, is where is the administration going with this INDC? And quite frankly, there's a huge gap that the administration has not filled. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the concerns that you all should have as the diplomatic community about the U.S. INDC, and some of the concerns that we have business community with the INDC. Quite frankly, from what we can tell, the INDC raises more questions than it answers. It's very little detail, and there's really no way to assess the cost and the achievability of the proposal. So let's go right into what the INDC said. So the INDC says that the U.S. is going to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025. Okay, it's a pretty easy mathematical issue here. If you look at where we need to be 28% below 2005 levels by 2025, we have to reduce emissions by about 1.8 gigatons, 1.8 billion metric tons of CO2 equivalents by 2025 compared to 2005. So what this chart shows you is all the things that the administration has announced and what the estimates are for the emission reductions that they can expect from those policies in 2025. As you can see, you get about 105 million metric ton reduction just from business as usual reductions. You get about, according to EIA, you get about 640 million metric ton reduction from the power sector through the EPA's wind power plant. So that's the most recent analysis that was just issued by the Energy Information Administration. And then when you start running down the list, you look at the oil and gas system, methane reductions, minus 125 million metric tons, USDA land program, another 120 tons, EPA SNAP program for HFC, 60, landfill methane, heavy truck. By the time you add all this up, you come up about 600 million metric tons short of the administration's goal. Depending on whether you look at it at the 26% goal or 28% goal, you're talking about a shortfall of about anywhere from 29 to 34%. So the question is, where is the administration going to get these extra tons? Quite frankly, we don't know. And you know, it's a shame that I have to run this type of analysis. There's a couple of other fellows, a fellow named Bookbinder and Bailey, who have their own consulting firm. They did a similar analysis, came up with similar results. WRI, the World Resource Institute, did a similar analysis, came up with similar results, but we haven't seen anything from the administration. And therein lies one of the problems. So we look at this gap, about 610 million metric tons, where are you going to get the extra emission reductions? One area that hasn't been explored, wasn't even mentioned in the EIA, is the industrial sector. Now the industrial sector, I estimate, and the EIA estimates that the industrial sector will account for about 900 million metric tons of CO2 emissions in 2025. That's a big hunk of emissions to ignore. And we know that EPA in its budget has said it's going to look at reducing emissions of the refining, pulp and paper, the iron and steel, the livestock, and cement sector. But so far we haven't seen a proposal coming out of EPA. And Roger can speak to this better than I can, but it takes a long time to get a proposal through EPA. It's certainly not going to happen before the Paris meeting in December, and it may not happen before the Obama administration leaves next year, or the year after, early the year after. So these are some very, very big question marks about what we can expect. When you take a look at what this means, you know, this is the chart that was in the INDC that the U.S. Submitted to the Framework Convention, and I've added the blue dotted line to show you where we estimate emissions would go, just based on what the administration has proposed. Okay? And you can see that we still have 610 million ton shortfall in 2025. So this is the gap that I've talked about, and we need to mind the gap, as the British say. So let me raise a couple of other issues that I think are important. Financing. As you consider the negotiations with parent financing, has become a very, very big and contentious part of the debate. The developing countries are pushing for $100 billion in financing for the Green Climate Fund, or at least for climate financing in 2020. If they did this proportional share, that would mean about $20 billion for the U.S. I frankly don't know whether they could get the money to do this. We have a Republican Congress. I'm sure if Chairman Rogers were here, he would speak long and heartily on this issue. I just don't see the Obama administration getting the money for this, particularly, as Neil Chapman will explain, particularly because the Obama administration is ignoring Congress, bypassing Congress completely, and doing it themselves in the executive agreement. That's not the way to win goodwill in Congress, and it will be very interesting to see how the administration proposes to get this money. So there are other political issues too. A lot of folks think that commitments are hugely unequal. They look at what China has committed to, which is essentially business as usual. What India is committed to is essentially business as usual. What Russia is committed to, essentially business as usual. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Russian proposal, from 2012, Russian emissions, Russians say this, Russian emissions will increase from 700 to 900 million metric tons. So I hear about the carbon constrained world, I haven't seen it yet. When you look at what other countries have committed to, these are all large, big countries. There's the question of whether this is hugely unequal commitments on their part, and what that means politically, for political support for the agreement. I mentioned briefly costs. EIA, the Energy Information Administration, recently did an analysis of the Clean Power Plan, and under their look, over the compliance period from 2020 to 2030, it's going to cost the economy about $1.2 trillion. And even when you take into account the social cost of carbon, it still amounts to a net loss of about $900 billion to $1.1 trillion over the compliance period. And even when you take into account co-benefits that EPA is banking on, you still come up with a shortfall of about $400 billion to $650 billion over the 2020 to 2030 period. So this is a huge hit for the economy. The centerpiece of the INDC is the Clean Power Plan. Roger's going to speak to that, but this is a very shaky legal ground. This is another huge issue you all have to consider. And there's been no consultation with Congress on this. So the question is whether this is, the agreement that comes out of Paris is going to be binding on future administrations and on future Congresses. The way things are going, the answer is no. So when I look at our experience today, and I look at what happened in Kyoto, in 1997, I see a lot of similarities. Remember Kyoto, the Senate passed before Kyoto was signed, the Senate passed resolutions telling administration not to come back to an agreement that doesn't have commitments from large developing countries and don't come back to an agreement that's going to harm the U.S. economy. The administration ignored that. They signed the Kyoto Protocol, but they knew it was liquid poison and they never submitted it to the Congress for ratification. I think we're replaying this. I think we now have an administration that's going to Paris, going to sign off on an agreement that is not going to be binding on future administrations and is not going to be binding on future Congress.